From Forex Traders Daily, this is your daily analysis with Ross Mullins, live from Richmond, Virginia.
Hello everyone, this is today's video analysis for November 4th, 2016. In today's video, I'm going to do a general overview of each of the U.S. currency pairs in anticipation of news that is expected at 8:30 a.m. Eastern U.S. time, about 35 minutes from the recording of this video. We have significant news. We have Canadian employment data, U.S. NFP, non-farm payrolls, earnings and unemployment rate information coming out. There's, of course, always highly anticipated volatility during these pieces of news events, and we're wrapping up a pretty significant week of news as we've gone throughout the entire week. So we have high volatility expected in about 35-40 minutes from now because of that news. So we want to take a look at each of the U.S. currency pairs and maybe look at some of the options. What happens if it's positive? What happens if it's negative for the U.S. dollar? First off, let's start here on the USDCHF, the dollar franc. Over the past couple of days, we have sat down into this support level. You see over here the yellow shaded area, bottom of our current market price, between 97.30 and 97.10. You see that yellow zone. We've taken some Fibonacci in there of the previous uptrend range, the blue trend line here. And that sits the 786 right here at 97.16, right at the bottom of our yellow zone. So yesterday and so far today, we have found support into, and actually over the past 3 days, we have found support into this yellow zone, unable to break through it. Yesterday we discussed the potential tweezer setup and reversal setup that was taking place here. Just hasn't done anything, and I think, of course, that is due to, of course, the non-farm payrolls news coming up today. But we're sitting here as support. One of two things is going to happen today. Either we get positive U.S. data, this actually bounces off the yellow zone and starts working its way back up again, at least maybe pushing back up towards the 100 period moving average and the green shaded area into the 97.80, 9800 level. That's on positive news for the U.S. It goes back up, and we see some reversal of this downfall that we've seen for the dollar franc. On negative news, if it's bad news for the U.S. and low jobs and higher unemployment rate, lower earnings, we would likely look for the breakdown of 97 and the continuation of this downward fall, pushing into the blue zone, which is this last area of support here into the blue zone, 96.80, 96.60. So bad news sends us lower. Good news, we look for the bounce off the yellow zone and for this to turn higher for the dollar franc. Just the opposite over here on the euro dollar. We have run into a significant resistance level. We've actually traded it this week, selling from the 111.20 levels, traded it earlier this week, made profit back down to the yellow zone. And we're still holding that area right underneath the green zone, 111.20, 111.35, 100 period moving average in there. Black trend line moving in there. Historical supports where the blue circles are. We see the Fibonacci, a couple of different ranges drawn with Fibonacci overlapping in there. So it's still the status quo. All week long we've been looking at resistance here, potential reversal to go back down, and of course a breakout above here goes higher. So positive news for the U.S., good news for the U.S. dollar, sends this lower, bounces off the resistance zone as we've been expecting all week, and goes back down. Negative news for the U.S. dollar, probably looks for the break through the black trend lines, through the 100 period moving average, through the green zone. And if it does that, I think we're likely seeing a significant run higher, because I would suspect there are some folks that have stop losses just above the green zone if they are trading this euro dollar right now. So if stop losses get triggered, we look for a significant surge higher. But right now, that's the main area to focus in on, is that zone between 111.20 and 35. As long as it's underneath there and we get good news, we'll look for this to turn back lower for the euro dollar today. Moving over to the GBP, of course, significant volatility this week on news about Article 50 and the ruling from the court, and it turned this currency pair higher. We've pushed through the blue trend line, which may or may not be significant. Probably more significant is the yellow shaded area you see here on my chart. If you zoom it in here, again, we broke through that yellow zone, sitting above it for the past day or so. But positive news, we still would probably see some support here, I think. Even if we got some good news out of the U.S., we'll still see support here. A breakdown through that yellow zone may look for the return of the downside. Currently, resistance is 25.10, 25.45, the green shaded area just above the market. If we get some negative news for the U.S., I don't think it's too difficult for us to break through 25.45 and continue this upside for the GBPUSD today. Moving over to the US CAD. Now this one could even be more volatile because we have Canadian employment data and unemployment rate at the very same time as the US data. So this may be a good pair to wait and see if you're looking to trade it. But for the past week or so, we've been stuck inside a period of congestion. The black box, top right-hand corner of the chart, orange zone at the bottom, blue zone at the top. We're going to look for a breakout. If it's good news for the U.S., this likely continues that upside pressure. If it's bad news for the U.S., we'll look for this to turn down. But we also have that caveat of the Canadian data. If it's good news for Canada, this could pressure down. If it's bad news for Canada, this goes back up. So what we'd actually prefer to see is the opposing things. We want to see good news for the U.S. and bad news for Canada, or good news for Canada and bad news for U.S. That would at least give us some direction in the same direction, some purpose in the same direction. So we'll see what happens here for this currency pair, but right now we need the breakout of this period of congestion over the past week or so. USDJPY, US yen, we've fallen down into the support level, the green shaded area. Take a look here on the daily time frame. We've studied that green zone. We actually traded it back here when it was on top of the moving average the last time. We're sitting on top of the 100 period moving average again yesterday, sitting on top of 102.90. Hasn't really pushed through it, but hasn't really made any headway back higher yet. So still waiting to see what's going to happen here. Of course, good news for the U.S. We'll likely look for this to continue to hold its support and maybe a turn back higher again, just like it did back here on the left-hand side. If we get poor news out of the U.S., we could see this break through the 100 period moving average and pressure back down again. So we know that there's some potential here, depending on which way today's news goes for the U.S. A rally for the U.S. dollar goes higher, or a fall for the U.S. dollar, taking it back through the moving average and to the next support level down into the mid to low 102s. Next, moving over to the AUDUSD. This one, here's an interesting scenario here. We're into resistance. Take a look at all the blue boxes at the top of the chart. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times we've been into resistance here. This is the daily time frame. So this goes all the way back into August. 5 times we've come up here into this zone where the boxes are between the blue and the green zone, found resistance and reversed. So here we are again into the blue zone, into the 7,700 level, or underneath 7,700. And right now, we're just waiting to see what happens. If we get some positive news for the U.S., this turns around and goes back down, just like it has since August. If we get some negative news, it may not, go too much higher. We know that the green shaded area at the top, 7720, 7750, is our next resistance above the blue zone, and we can see even since August that has held as resistance. I don't think we can really trust the upside here for the Australian dollar until or unless we get through the green zone and 7750. Until it gets through that green zone, I can't trust the upside right now until it gets through there. Right now, as long as it's underneath there, green zone and the blue zone today, there's still potential resistance. So it depends on how negative or how positive that news comes out. Will depend on what we expect to see here. So positive news, the U.S., we might look for this to turn lower. Negative news, we could see the challenge of the green zone. We wouldn't expect it to go higher until it breaks through that green zone for the Australian dollar. And lastly, New Zealand dollar, NZDUSD. Again, very similar to the Australian dollar. We're into resistance. Take a look at the pink shaded area at the top. That is right around the 73.50 level. Look back here where the red circle and blue circle is. We found resistance and reversal. Red circle, blue circle. That was a head and shoulders pattern back there. Red circle, blue circle, black circle is the head. We traded that several weeks ago, but we're into that same resistance. So we're at a key decision point into the 73.50 level. Okay, let's zoom it in now that we know that history. So here we are on the daily. We're in key resistance as long as it stays underneath it. And if we get good news for the U.S., good positive data for the U.S., this goes back down again. If we get negative news, it may just break right through 73.50 and pressure back up into the 7,400 level, which is the blue shaded area just above the current market. So key area right here, the pink zone. Good news for the U.S. sends it lower. Bad news for the U.S. continues the upside for the New Zealand dollar this week.
From Forex Traders Daily, this has been your daily analysis with Ross Mullins. If you would like to get Ross's analysis on all the currency pairs he's watching and all the trades he takes today, join him in his live trade room by clicking on the link below. Please leave any comments you have about today's video in the comments section below.